Let me start with a simple truth. Challenging conversations at work aren't a sign that something is wrong. They're a sign that something needs attention. And the people who learn to handle those moments with calm, clarity, and confidence become the leaders everyone trusts. But here's what usually happens. We walk into tough conversations with coworkers carrying frustration, assumptions, or a story we've been replaying in our head for days. And before the real conversation even begins, we're already on edge. When you step into a challenging conversation with a coworker, the very first thing that determines how everything will unfold isn't your words, your logic, or your intentions, it's your calm. Your calm is not just a personal feeling, it becomes the emotional blueprint of the entire interaction. The way you walk in, the tone you choose, the energy you carry, those become the unspoken instructions for how the other person responds. That is why staying calm first is not just helpful, it is strategic. Your tone sets the tone. You can walk into the same situation with frustration and create defensiveness. Or you can walk in with composure and create cooperation. The situation stays the same, but the outcome changes depending on the emotional temperature you bring. Staying calm does not mean pretending nothing is wrong. It means regulating yourself so you can address what's wrong in a way that actually works. When you're tense, your voice tightens, your responses get faster, your breath gets shorter, and your words become sharper. Even if you're right, your delivery makes it hard for anyone to actually hear you. But when you slow your breathing, relax your shoulders, and speak with intention, you send an unspoken message. This can be solved. People naturally mirror the emotional state they're interacting with. If you're chaotic, they become chaotic. If you're aggressive, they become defensive. If you're calm, they soften. Your tone becomes an invitation to handle the problem like adults instead of opponents. In a workplace environment, tensions rise easily because everyone is dealing with deadlines, stress, expectations, and personal interpretations of what should happen. A calm tone cuts through that noise. It tells the other person you're focused on solutions, not blame. It tells them you're not here to attack them, you're here to fix something. And the moment people no longer feel threatened, they listen differently. They shift from reacting to responding. They shift from defending themselves to actually working with you. The truth is, most workplace conflicts escalate not because of the situation, but because of the tone in which the situation is approached. Two people can say the exact same sentence, but the emotional delivery changes everything. "We need to talk," said with tension, feels like a confrontation. "Can we talk through something real quick?" said calmly, feels like teamwork. Tone is invisible, but it has weight. It carries meaning even before your message arrives. And once someone feels safe with your tone, they become open to your message. When you stay calm, you also gain a major advantage: clarity. Clarity disappears the moment emotion takes over. You start assuming motives, exaggerating problems, or taking things personally. You hear what you want to hear instead of what's actually being said. But when you remain steady, your brain can process information accurately. You can respond to what's real, not what your frustration is inventing. And in challenging conversations with coworkers, clarity is everything. It allows you to separate the person from the problem. It allows you to listen without preparing your comeback. It allows you to understand their viewpoint without losing your own. Calm isn't passive. Calm is power held steady. It's the ability to anchor yourself when the conversation starts drifting into tension. It's the strength to speak evenly, even when the topic is uncomfortable. It's the maturity to choose effectiveness over emotional impulse. When you maintain calm, you're not giving up control. You're taking control. You're guiding the emotional direction of the conversation instead of being dragged by it. Sometimes the other person might walk in defensive or irritated. They may speak fast, loud, or with blame in their voice. This is exactly when your calm becomes the turning point. If you match their intensity, the conversation becomes a competition. If you lower your tone instead, the conversation becomes grounded. You create contrast. Your calmness disrupts their escalation. People instinctively mirror the pace and temperature of the interaction, and your steady tone sets a new pace for them to follow. This is how leadership shows itself, not by force, but by emotional control. You can't stop someone from being difficult, but you can stop yourself from becoming reactive. And when you don't react, the conversation stays manageable. You stay clear-minded, you stay intentional, you stay effective. Your calm is the filter that keeps the conversation productive instead of personal. Your tone tells the other person, "We're going to talk about this like professionals." It sends the message that respect is required here, even if disagreement exists. Over time, people learn your communication pattern. They trust you because they know you won't explode. They come to you with issues because they know you listen. They respect you because you carry yourself with steadiness, even in uncomfortable moments. Calm becomes your branding. And in a workplace, especially during challenging conversations, that brand becomes invaluable. When you stay calm first, you build a kind of environment where conversations aren't avoided, they're handled. Problems aren't buried, they're solved. Relationships aren't damaged, they're strengthened. Calm is not a reaction. Calm is a choice. And the moment you choose it, you choose the entire direction the conversation will go. Your tone sets the tone every single time. When you separate the person from the problem, you instantly take back control of the conversation. Most challenging conversations go sideways, not because the issue is complicated, but because egos get involved, emotions flare up, and both people start defending themselves instead of solving anything. The moment you make it personal, the brain stops listening and starts protecting. But when you pull the problem out of the middle and put it on the table, where both of you can look at it without attacking each other, you turn tension into teamwork. You stop being opponents and start being collaborators. That shift alone can save hours of frustration, misunderstandings, and silent resentment that usually gets buried until it explodes later. Handling coworkers becomes infinitely easier when you decide that the issue is the issue, not the person. The truth is, people sometimes bring their stress, frustration, or insecurity into a discussion without meaning to. Someone might sound irritated, but maybe they're overwhelmed. Someone might seem dismissive, but maybe they're unsure of how to respond. Someone might appear aggressive, but maybe they feel unheard. When you assume everything they say is about you, you take on weight that isn't even yours. But when you separate them from the problem, you give yourself the freedom to respond without absorbing their mood. You stop personalizing tone, wording, or facial expressions, and instead focus on the actual thing that needs fixing. That's emotional maturity. That's professionalism. And that's how you keep the conversation productive instead of combative. This mindset helps you avoid the trap of reacting to reactions. It prevents the back and forth spiral where the original issue gets buried under layers of attitude, assumptions, and defensiveness. Instead of thinking, why are they talking to me like that? You start thinking, what's the real issue underneath this tone? That shift switches you from emotional mode to problem-solving mode. It's like stepping out of the storm instead of trying to argue with the wind. You don't get dragged into their energy, and you don't add more fire to an already heated moment. When you detach the human from the behavior, you see more clearly, you listen better, and you protect your own peace while staying effective. It also makes communication smoother because people feel safer when they don't think you're attacking them. When you address the problem without hitting their identity, they drop their guard automatically. Instead of saying, you messed this up, you say, this part here isn't working. Let's look at it together. Now you're not pointing at them. You're pointing at the issue. That opens the door for collaboration instead of conflict. Even if they walked in defensive, they walk out relieved because they didn't have to protect themselves. That makes them more willing to meet you halfway, more open to feedback, and more receptive to solutions. Separating the person from the problem also gives you clarity about what deserves your energy. You stop fighting shadows. You stop battling personalities. You stop wasting emotional fuel on stories your mind creates in the moment. You deal with facts, not feelings. You deal with behavior, not identity. And that prevents unnecessary tension that damages work relationships. You can disagree without becoming distant. You can challenge something without making someone feel challenged. You can point out an issue without pointing fingers. That's how professionals earn respect, by fixing the problem without breaking the relationship. This approach also protects your internal balance. Workplaces are filled with different backgrounds, communication styles, and stress levels. Not everyone thinks the way you do. Not everyone expresses themselves the way you do. And not everyone manages pressure the way you do. When you separate people from the problem, you create emotional space inside yourself. You stop absorbing their stress. You stop internalizing their behavior. You stop letting their tone dictate your response. You operate from steadiness rather than sensitivity. That makes you appear more confident, more grounded, and more capable, even in the middle of tough discussions. You also become a better listener because you're not busy defending yourself. You're not planning your comeback. You're not waiting for your turn to argue. You're actually hearing them. And when people feel heard, conflict dissolves faster. they soften, they open up, they trust you more. And once trust enters the conversation, solutions appear quickly because both sides feel like they're working together instead of surviving each other. Separating the person from the problem isn't about ignoring behavior or allowing disrespect. It's about removing emotional fog so you can address the situation with clarity. It's about not letting your brain attach someone's stress to your self-worth. It's about being steady when others are reactive. It's about elevating the conversation instead of matching the chaos. That's how you handle coworkers with strength, composure, and maturity. It's not personal unless you make it personal, and the moment you stop making it personal, you make space for real solutions to finally happen. When your emotions walk in first, your effectiveness walks out. So the first step is simple. Slow your body before you say a word, because if you walk in tense, defensive, or irritated, the entire conversation shifts. Your tone becomes a thermostat. If you stay cool, the room stays cool. If you heat up, everything catches fire. But staying calm doesn't mean staying silent. Silence isn't strength, clarity is. Most workplace conflict isn't about the issue. It's about how we talk about the issue. The moment you make it personal, the conversation becomes a battle. The moment you stay focused on the problem, the conversation becomes a solution. Instead of saying you never listen, try. I want us to find a way to communicate better so we can both get what we need. You didn't attack. You didn't blame. You invited collaboration, and that's how you turn a conflict into a partnership. One of the biggest mistakes people make in tough conversations is this: they listen only to respond, not to understand. Every second the other person is talking, they're preparing their next comeback. That's not communication. That's verbal fencing. When you genuinely listen, without interrupting, without rehearsing your next line, you're not just hearing them, you're lowering their defenses. People calm down when they feel understood. And once someone feels understood, they become far more open to understanding you. But here's something even more important. Clarity beats emotion every time. Say what you actually mean. Not the emotional version, not the dramatic version, not the version shaped by frustration. Say the clear, calm truth. Here's what I need. Here's what didn't work for me. Here's how we can fix it moving forward. Short, steady, neutral. You don't need big speeches to fix workplace problems. You just need honest ones. And let's talk about the ego. Because ego ruins more conversations than mistakes ever will. You're not there to win. You're there to resolve. Winning creates losers. Resolving creates progress. When you choose resolution over ego, everything shifts. The conversation becomes lighter. Your goals become aligned, and the relationship becomes stronger. One of the strongest things you can say in a challenging conversation is, I might not have the full picture. Help me understand your perspective. It shows maturity, not weakness. It shows intention, not insecurity. It tells the other person, we're on the same team, let's fix this together. And if the conversation gets heated, because sometimes it will, remember this: you don't have to match their energy. You don't have to mirror their tone. You don't have to step into their storm. Your calm is your power. Your clarity is your anchor. Your communication is your leadership. At the end of the day, challenging conversations aren't obstacles. They're opportunities. Opportunities to grow. Opportunities to set standards. Opportunities to build trust. Opportunities to show who you are when the pressure is on. Anyone can talk when things are easy. Leaders talk well when things are hard. And that's exactly what you're becoming. Not the loudest voice, not the toughest voice, but the clearest, calmest, and most intentional voice in the room. Using clarity instead of emotion is one of the most powerful ways to handle tough conversations, especially with coworkers. When you say what you mean without attacking, you remove all the noise.